I almost forget how to do this. Trying to remember where we were. Well, where were we? The year started with family and friends who got COVID, job stress, a couple of my fellow employees getting sick, not with COVID, I guess, and then I don't even remember what the other big things were. There were a few things that happened between some of that, and the next thing that happened was almost lost my living space, heat wave, car broke down, lost the car, had to try to get a replacement of a car. Replacement wasn't great, has some problems, still need to work some things out on that one. A heat wave again. Electrical issues around the house. Mold in the bathroom. I had to pull out the bathroom. The bathroom's still not fully built yet. And then recently, we've had so many thunderstorms, it hasn't been safe to record. I had my computer break on me again. So I'm scrapping that computer and I'm starting over. I'm not super enthusiastic because I've had to go for a super cheap model, but so yeah, computer broke down. And then I got shingles. That's a good time. So I'm still kind of recuperating from that. We'll see how it goes. I don't know how much longer I will still have some of that going on, but hopefully not any permanent issues. Been applying to other jobs, so there's that going too. But so what the hell fell off? All right. Not gonna spend a lot of time trying. Don't pick fights with me, buddy. All right. So as it stands right now, I'm not really able to access much of my computer stuff. I did lose some stuff, and it took me a little while to rebuild some of the things that I was trying to rebuild. I'm not going to be able to salvage everything from it, but c'est la vie. I mean, at this point, what I'm going to try to figure out at a certain point is if it's viable for me to save some of the old hard drives from the laptop that broke. Because I have 2 terabyte drives with at least one of them. Well, yeah, I lost a lot of image files and visual work that I was working on. So it'll be what it'll be. I may never get that back. I managed to save some of the writing files that I was working on with a loss of about a week of stuff this last crash. And if I never get that back, it's like a week's worth of stuff. I can, rebuild some of that stuff. Okay. And if I can turn that terabyte hard drive into a external hard drive for data storage, I'll probably see if I can do that. The older hard drive for that same laptop that I replaced it because it crashed. I can't get into it. but it's got like 6 to 8 months worth of stuff on it that I would like to get back. The odds that I'll be able to get it back, I don't know. It's probably hit or miss. But if I can get any data back from either of them, that would be amazing. If I can get it back, I want to get it back. So I'm not going to reformat it until I get a chance to get somebody to help me go through them and see if I can recover anything from them. The first crash on that laptop, there's no getting that back. That's just gone. There's no option to get it back, which sucks because that had the 1.5 years worth of stuff on it that I'm never going to get back. But it's possible that if I can get the data off the 2 that I currently have, that I should be able to transfer that data over to another device and potentially reformat those hard drives to be externals. So that would be 2 terabit hard drives as backup hard drives. The laptop that's over here with the broken monitor, it also has a terabit hard drive, and I have an external hard drive that I bought when I was traveling for the Maker Tours that has, I believe it's a terabit hard drive. So I might have 1, 2, 3, 4 terabit hard drives to play with at a certain point. If I get this laptop either up and running again with a functional laptop format again, or use it as a desktop unit for a while, maybe transfer some of the stuff off of the hard drive and scrap the computer at a certain point and then turn that hard drive into a external. So that could get me 3 terabit hard drive conversions with an external terabit hard drive, and the computer I'm using right now has a terabit hard drive. So I should have enough storage space between a lot of that if I find a way to use it all as storage space. The newer laptop that I had to get to replace the one that broke is, it's not even really a laptop, it's a Chromebook. I got a cheap, like $130 Chromebook that lets me surf the internet for what I need it to do. So it's not ideal, but it'll do what I need it to do for right now. And that's sort of the position I'm in right now. Now, I have been looking at things about getting back online with my, hey there. Yeah, I mean, those are some hefty drives. And it's cool that they do that. I'm trying to remember, like, I can't remember for sure, and I'm not gonna strain my functioning computer by streaming while looking things up on it. But actually, I could probably grab the laptop and do a look. This is the replacement. I've got a Samsung Chromebook, and honestly, like, I can't use the hard drive worth a damn for anything because it doesn't have a real hard drive. But let's be curious here and have a look-see at... No, I don't want musical instruments. What the hell are you doing? God, I hate search engines. They don't do what you ask them to do. Thumb drives. I seem to recall a while back thinking, like, thumb drive storage seemed insanely large for standard. Yeah, there are 2 terabit thumb drives that you can purchase. Now, whether or not they actually have a full 2 terabytes on them, can store full 2 terabytes. And they're like 38 to 40 bucks a piece. And I'm kind of curious, like, if I bought some some of those drives. I mean, for me, a lot of stuff would be like, there might be video files or image files, but not a lot of like audio or video. I don't really, once I've created a YouTube video, I get rid of the source material in most cases. So I don't need to store 3 different copies of a video file. You know, the raw video, the edit in my editing program file, and then the ready for export to YouTube file. Like I did that for a little while, and I hit the wall pretty quick on what my storage space would allow. So I just started deleting the edited videos once they went up. I did keep some of the raw video files just in case I ever want to go back. And so there's a part of me is like, thumb drives, maybe for like document files or stuff like that. But I mean, I seem to recall, what was it I spent on an external hard drive? It's probably even cheaper than I used to use. And like, I seem to remember it was like, I think I probably spent like $80 or something like that. Yeah, 60 to 80, 50 to 60 right now does fairly well. And it's double the size of the one I have. So yeah, you can probably do all right. So there's a 6 terabyte Elements desktop hard drive. It depends on what format of video you're saving in. If you're doing a 4K video, then yeah, you're probably going to start using up that kind of space. I don't do anything at that size. And the other thing is, like, most of what I've done on this channel has been live streamed. So I don't have it recorded on my hard drive anywhere. Hopefully it's not jamming up my hard drive with things happening in the background. But I had to be more selective about what ones I saved, what files I saved. And in the long run, most of what I end up saving is going to be PDFs, text files, and LibreOffice document files. And past that, I've grabbed some images for art inspiration, but I've lost so many of those in crashes that it just like, it doesn't even matter anymore. Like, I have such a huge volume on one computer, and I build another volume of them on another computer, different images. Something crashes, I lose half of them, but you know, like, am I even going to go back and use all of them? I don't know. It seems not likely. But yeah, the document files where I have things like rules for my game designs, or like the idea of some of my story outlines, scripts for movies or other things, those kinds of things, they're not as big as you think they are. Like, I literally have a couple hundred PDFs of full-length novels, and they don't even begin to touch. Like, I'm pretty sure I could get all of those to fit on a 32 gigabyte hard like thumb drive. I'm not sure about that, but I'm reasonably certain. Like, text files do not take up as much space as we think they should take. For the amount of weight that I apply to the importance of text files and PDFs, they do not take up the space that I think they do. They just don't have the space in them. So I'm not super worried about most of that. I do periodically want to try to back up a lot of my text files, just so I don't keep losing them. hopefully I won't have more hard drive crashes and breakdowns, but yeah, it is what it is. I mean, I'm just getting to the point where it's like I can't keep fighting the fight anymore. So I just try to keep my head above water and wait for this shit to stop slamming into me all the time. But yeah, this is the new mobile laptop. And the thing about this one, this is sort of stupid. The thing about this is, yes, it's a cheapo Chromebook that doesn't do a lot. The cheap Chromebook that I got here, yeah, it doesn't have a lot of hard drive space, and it's not really up to a lot of crunchy stuff. But it's got like a 14-hour battery life, which is, to me, amazing. So being able to do stuff for hours. I've mainly been watching YouTube videos. Hard drive space, honestly, I think it's like a 32 or 16 to 32 gigabyte hard drive. And it doesn't use a standard Windows or Linux or OS operating system. It's a Chromebook operating system. So it doesn't have a lot of the capabilities of a standard laptop. It does have an account that you can use to store data off the computer. So you'd have to in order to access it, you have to be able to connect to the internet. And a lot of the features of this Chromebook are like that. In order to do a lot of things, you have to connect to the internet. It's really meant to be an internet surfing device. But it was $130 rather than $350, which is sort of important right now for me. And if this one crashes in the next 2 years, I can go spend another $130 for another one that'll last me another few years. Whereas the laptop that I got to replace the last laptop that broke, I spent $320 on it. It's broken 4 times in the last 2 years, and I've lost years of data in those crashes. I'm not playing that game anymore. I don't have the mental fortitude to survive that kind of thing again. It wrecked me. Like, it set me back so many months for that to happen. And I just don't have the capability of just holding on for a little while longer. I don't want to drop another $300 something to $400 on a laptop to keep me up and running for a year and a half before that little thing breaks on me and throws me under the bus again. I just don't have the ability to do that. So, I mean, I may have to end up going lean on what I end up keeping for functional computers and stuff. I do want to see if I can rebuild the older, I think it was a Windows. Oh God, it was pre-Windows 10. Whatever the one, like 7? 8? Might have been 8. I have a laptop that's a bulky unit. The keyboard cord broke free from its attachment. I might be able to rig something to hold that in. The battery tabs that hold the battery in don't work anymore. I might be able to rig that to hold for a little while. And the cooling system broke down. I can swap that out for like $12. And if I can get that up and running again, there's some shit on there that I want to pull off too. Yeah. I'm not keeping any data on the Chromebook. It's not meant to be that. It's meant to be something that connects me to the internet. And that is what it is. I mean, the other half of that is this desktop computer that I'm using right now. It's a rebuilt desktop that has some limitations on it. It's doing me all right now. Trying to do my best to back up the data that are important for me to keep on it. But I'm also trying not to overuse it. I'm not, especially in the hot of the summer, which is one of the things that I think interfered with the other laptop that broke. Because I was having some screen issues at one point, so it may be a connection on the screen. The power cord connector on that one was starting to go, and I could probably fix it at a point where I would pull it out and swap the battery, because it's one of those built-in batteries that you have to open up the whole laptop to get to, and I wasn't in a hurry to do that just because the cord was wiggly. But it also, I didn't spring for Windows on it, so it was running Linux. And the problem with running Linux on that device is, for whatever stupid frickin' reason, the version of Linux that I was running on that would periodically forget that it was a laptop, and therefore not remember that it, not recognize that it had a battery internally. So if you pulled the power cord, within 5 seconds, it would turn itself off. And you'd have to reboot. And if you didn't plug it in before you rebooted it, it wouldn't recognize that it was getting power from any source. But from time to time, it would wake up to the fact that it had a battery, and you'd get a month or so where you could use it like a laptop again for 2 hours at a time. So it wasn't the battery failing. For whatever reason, the stupid device, Linux in that system, repeatedly would forget that it's a laptop. And so as soon as it was reading no connected power cord, it would auto shut off. And I think it did it a few too many times, and that crashed the hard drive. Something like that. I can't even tell you what happened to it. All I know is the last time I tried to boot it up, it told me it couldn't initiate the boot up process for some reason or other. And I was like, I just need to see if I can find somebody who knows Linux well enough that we can put it up, plug it in, use a safe boot from a thumb drive, and access the partition that exists with all the data on it. Otherwise, whatever. I'm done fighting with that laptop. If the cord is going to go, the operating system's going to fight me, the screen's starting to go, the battery's going to potentially need to go at some point, I'm not going to keep fighting to keep it alive. It's crashed 2 hard drives on me already. I don't need to do it anymore. So Chromebook lets me surf the internet, do research, and post things to online accounts. So I can make some Google documents and store it on Google. Well, welcome. I think we got a couple extra people in tonight than usual. But right now, what I'm trying to do is keep this thing, use this for my surfing, keep this one that I'm using for my YouTubing and data storage, not using it a lot, because we have had temperatures here where the humidity and the heat had been enough to really start to strain computers. And I don't want to strain this one any more than I have to, because this is my rely on one. Now, for the Opportunity Forge channel that I started, I haven't done anything in that in a little while, but I was using predominantly my phone to do it. I'm not storing any of the video that I do for it. I may change that in the near future, and I might end up using this to do the change, where what I'm trying to do, I don't know if I can even use this one to do any video editing. I'm kind of curious to see if I could. I'll see if I can do that. Right now, I still got to square away some of my car transportation stuff, my job stuff, and my living situation stuff. And I need to get over the shingles, because that's been a ride. That's been a hell of a ride. I'm ready to be done with all of the things that's slapping me from the side. This year has not been a great year. I'm hoping to hear back from a couple of the jobs that I've applied to in other areas. But one of the other things that I've been considering doing, and I may do this as a series on my Opportunity Forge channel, is I've been looking at maybe doing voiceover stuff and some of my art stuff. I think the last time I was on here showed off the fact that I was experimenting with doing artwork on grains of rice. And that's a potential environment to play around with. I know there's a couple local markets that I could sell that kind of stuff for art pieces. And so I'm looking at possibilities of ways to do making my own income from other sources. So like voiceover stuff, not necessarily like most people think. I do think there is some what do they call them? Like VXC or something like that. I think Amazon has you can read books and get paid to do it kind of gigs. There's audiobooks that you can do for other sources out there. And then there's like other people who do YouTube videos. There are people who will do like whiteboard animations, like the doodler images. And there are other people who will do like top 10 list kind of videos. And they will hire people to do the voiceovers for them because they have a strong accent or something like that they don't want to use. And you can get paid pretty decently for some of that stuff. So I've been looking into a little bit of it lately just to see what kind of opportunities might be available to me. And some of the possibilities look actually really good. I would love to see what I can actually do with some of that. Now, that's, it's in the interest of the people who sell courses on how to do that stuff to make it sound way more lucrative than it is. So I'm conscious of the fact that I'm not sure it's as good as many people seem to suggest it is. Watch me cut my finger off or poke my eye out tonight here playing around with fixing this thing. But the idea of some people talking about how they make $2,000 to $4,000 a month doing voiceover work online, my instinct is to say, let's say 200 to 400 is more likely. That's still pretty good. If I'm doing 200 to 400 a month in that environment for, say, 3 or 4 hours of work, not a day, let's say 15 hours a week gets me 400. What's the math on this? My brain's not up to the math right now. So 15 hours a week. No, that's not what we're doing. We're doing, say, 300 divided by 15. It's about $20 an hour, which is not a bad rate to get. But 300 a week or say 200 a week for 4 weeks. $4.33 is usually what we calculate when we do a month. So 4.33 weeks. That would be about 866 a month. Divided by, 866. It's 15 hours per week times 4.33 would get you about 65 hours a month. 65, that's, or no, 8.66, 866 divided by, I screwed that up, didn't I? Yes, I did. I'm trying to run the math and my head's not doing it. Background in what? What are we looking for as question of what's my background? For voice over, I see what I would like to probably end up doing for voiceover would probably be something more along the lines of for use in other videos or characters. Culture. That's complicated. I'm adopted, so a lot of that information's dependent on whether you calculate nurture versus nature and whether or not you believe the records that were kept. But I've got a couple of mixed heritages. Most of it, I think I've got some Dutch and a fair bit of Scotch-Irish, a little bit of French-Canadian, some Native American, mostly Iroquois in that regard. Even supposedly have some reference to specific clans in the Iroquois nations, but it's yeah. So I mean, it's a little bit of a jumble all over, but God, my joints are killing me right now. But for the most part, my adoptive family is Scottish on my mother's side for the large part. And my adoptive father was predominantly English who originally were from German heritage. So their last name is Jaeger. So they are German, but they were in England so long that the family records of the name existed. The joints are sore. The joints are sore because I've always had a little bit of joint issue, but I've also got a case of the shingles, which is what happens when you had chickenpox as a child and the virus goes dormant in your system and reemerges later and causes a lot of inflammation, muscle soreness, tightness, and inflammation. So that's where we are right now. It's probably about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks into it. So I probably have about another week to 2.5 weeks of that happening still. So hopefully it's not too bad for too much longer. Yeah, c'est la vie. 15. It's it's one of my multiple health concerns that is always something to watch out for. It's never a pleasant ride. 64. Okay, so 65. 866 divided by 65. Where was I? I was doing the math. I forgot where I was. So, yeah. So if you basically figured you were doing 15 hours a week of work, and we're making about $300 to $400 a month, you're getting about $13 an hour, which is not a bad pay rate. And doing that for voiceover, I think I could have some fun doing some simple voiceover projects. Could I ever really get $400 a month? I don't know, maybe. I'm curious to see what I could get anyway. And it's not like I'll be relying on it as my sole form of income. But an extra $400 a month would be great. And if I could do $200 worth of art sales in a month on top of that, get me up to 600. As side gigs of things that I enjoy doing, I think that would be a reasonably good experience. And, 15 hours a week divided by 7, it's sort of like it's a little more than 2 hours a day for voice acting. And if I put an hour or two into art each week, if I did it each day, 4 hours out of my day, because that's the thing I really end up doing a lot of thinking on my part is I don't watch a lot of TV. I do sometimes squander a lot of time playing around on the internet. And in my mind, I'm like, the jobs I'm working, I'm not doing for 16 hours a day. Like your general sleep-wake cycle is 8 hours asleep, 8 hours working, 8 hours you time. So if you have 8 hours that is you time, if you spend 2 hours doing voice acting stuff and 2 hours doing artworks and 2 hours doing something else on top of an 8-hour workday every day, which I mean, I'm not going to even pretend I do 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, because that's an insane, like, I'm not getting 56 hours a week. But even if I were 56 hours a week of working, I would still have that 8 hours that's my time. And if I did 6 of those for, 2 for voice acting, 2 for artworks, and 2 for something else, I would still have 2 hours for chores, errands, and other stuff to do. Well, and that's the thing is like, different people have different requirements. Now, if you're trying to do voice acting for a studio in the United States, then the standards that they're going to require are going to be way more than the voice acting requirements for somebody who's doing a YouTube video and doesn't like the fact that they have a thick Indian accent for their explainer video and would rather somebody with a clear, crisp speaking voice of a North American. Some, like, a recognizable accent, a recognizable method of speaking that is clear to most people who will see it. And so, like, somebody who's producing explainer videos with VScribe or Scribbly or whatever some of those whiteboard animation softwares are, they're paying, like, I think probably like $40 a month for the software to use it. And they'll be pumping out enough videos on a regular basis, and to have a voiceover voice that can be understood in people who are English as a second language populations, it's easier for them to understand a North American accent than in many cases it is to understand something like a Australian accents or New Zealanders. Although Australian's pretty easy too. Like, you can get pretty far with some of that. But like a North American accent allows you to be able to be at the top of the pick for, and the other thing that influences some of that, believe it or not, is the voice acting that I've seen so far is you're getting people who want something different. Like, if you look at a modern commercial for a car or a credit card or something like that, they're not cinematic voiceovers like we remember from when we were younger. When we have somebody who's younger than or as old as we are, I guess is the phrase I will use there, you'll remember like the In a World Where, and you've got that husky, deep, intense voice. Like that isn't done anymore. Like the commercials these days don't sound like that. I haven't done anything in it yet. I'm curious to see what kind of opportunities I could start exploring, starting from scratch. That's sort of half the fun of doing some of these projects, is seeing where you can get from nowhere. Because if I were to do a modern day commercial, I don't think I would be fit for that yet. I've got some improv acting history from back in my school days, but that's not going to get me very far yet. But the thing to keep in mind is the people who are doing YouTube animations, or the people who are doing whiteboard explainer videos, or doing online courses, they're not looking necessarily for, and I'd have to get into my announcer state. I'd have to obliterate my tendency to use ums, because I will be reading from a script in most of those cases, not improvisational speaking. And I will probably not be sort of one-way talking, is sort of what a lot of this is. It'll be talking to people, because I actually do much better when it's me and somebody else talking together, because it's a lot easier than talking to a camera and having nobody say anything to you other than maybe occasionally looking down and catching my radio voice. I don't think I have a radio voice. And I think it's dependent on what you're reading. And I think that's where there's room to play. So one of the things I was looking at doing was, there are commercials, there are narrations, there are ebooks that you can do. And I think ebooks is a different format, where it's like reading a book to a child. Not necessarily reading to a child, but that sort of narrative reading aspect. Those are options. There are courses like where you're closer to a natural speaking voice, or you can put on voices like a Carl Sagan, or who else would be the one to think about? I had a list of them actually at one point that I thought would be interesting. I actually thought it would be fun to do a series of film noir voiceover bits. And I've been debating whether or not it would be fun just to start up a like an Instagram or a TikTok account and do like literal, just like tiny chunks of reading Twitter tweets or other things like that, as like a film noir detective. Like not like Watchmen, the movie Watchmen, Rorschach, because he's got this grumbly voice. But oh god, I when I think of a noir voice, it's hard not to try to slip into a New York accent. And I think the thing to try to keep in mind is, for a lot of voice acting, the voice-over work, is you're not doing voice acting, you're doing natural voice. Stolen him. Film noir. Oh god, trying to remember. See, it would be easier if I had a script. I don't have a script. I thought it would be fun to try, and I'd have to set up a better sound system and positioning so there's not as much background noise, and set it up so I'm directly speaking into the mic. I was actually going to see if I can type in a film noir intro. I wonder, there are a couple of those services, like somebody's been doing some stuff online where it's been there's a service that will read or provide you written texts for games that'll be like a box text. So, wow, it's really interesting to see. The tendency is to try to get a New York accent, and I don't want to do a New York accent. It was a cold, blistery summer night in New York City, and I wasn't happy to be where I was. That kind of stuff. Like I don't want to slip into a New York accent, so because I will do it badly. I do not do accents well yet, but I do want to practice. I could have a lot of fun with that kind of thing. I don't want to do what is it? Here's looking at you, sweetheart. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to Bogart. But and I don't want to do fake accents either for other things too. Like a New York accent, like a New York accent would be a little less clear that it's forced than if I were to try to do a English accent. God, it's boiling in here right now. Like if I were to try to do an English accent, I'm not allowed. I'm just not allowed to do it. Just like I could probably give you a very fake version of a Southern accent. I could probably get away with a California and maybe a Pacific Northwest. But if you want a Texas or an Alabama, it's not going to be very good. Boston might be a little hard. Boston would be hilarious. Despite the fact that I could walk from here to Boston in about a day if I just walked the whole day. I don't think I'd want to. Not in this heat anyway. But doing a Boston accent is a little harsh. Just like a New Jersey. And it's funny because a lot of the US accents that you get, there's a lot of variety running down the East Coast. There's a little bit from East Coast to the West Coast, but it's way less than from north to south. Like I can think of 6 or 7 from north to south. I can think of 2 or 3 from northeast to northwest. And then you sort of get a muddled cluster of similar Southern accents, but say marmalade. I don't know that one. Marmalade. Yeah, there's a lot of lost R's in some of those regions. Not all of them, which is weird. I'm not an accent person. And that's the thing is, for a lot of the voiceover, I wouldn't be doing accents. The goal isn't to play characters. Voiceover isn't quite the same thing as character actor. So what a lot of people are looking for in a voiceover is more of the, like if you've ever watched a program in like Discovery Channel that's talking about the planets, and they have what is it, Drake and Patrick Stewart, those are voiceovers. They're not playing a character. They are themselves narrating a thing. I'm a born and raised in New Hampshire, United States. Born in a cabin in the woods. I don't have the typical New Hampshire sound, though. New Hampshire has a little bit of Maine and a little bit of Massachusetts to it. You can't get there from here. Washing machine sort of sound, and I don't do that. And I don't know if part of that is there's a little bit of French Canadian in the first few years where I was with my genetic family. And then there's a little bit of my adoptive family's from New Jersey. And so I've got a little bit of the French Canadian aspects from genetic family, a little bit of the New Jersey aspects from adoptive family, but I'm not as bad as my adoptive family. yeah, that's New Hampshire right there. Can't get there from here. But I do know that I had a lot of friends who thought I had a little bit of a weirdness to some of the things I would say. Like, I have always been in if you were to say this is the difference between picking one or the other, a lot of people will say either. I rarely say it, but I do sometimes say it. I oftentimes say either, and that does drive some of my friends nuts. Either is one, like, I don't say neither, I say neither. I say either, not either. And that's one, it is one way of pronouncing it, but I guess it's not as common in my region. And I think the other thing that catches some people, and this is the one where they say, we're in a part of New Hampshire that is relatively middle of New Hampshire, but there has always been so much traffic across the Canadian border on a regular basis that we do get some lone pronunciations of certain things. So I don't know if it's French Canadian side that's giving this one or New Jersey side getting this one, but one of the ones that they used to tease me about, and I'm probably going to end up exaggerating it slightly, is goat, boat. It's not as round an O sound. It's boat, and it's got a little bit of ew to it. So it's like goat, boat, and even toast. It's not toast, it's toast. It's just a little bit of a difference. I can barely notice it, but I got razzed about it a lot when I was in school. But so I would theoretically, if I were to do some voiceover stuff, I would get a script and I wouldn't be doing a voice. I would be doing my voice. Sort of. Like, it's weird because when you're on mic, you tend to put on a voice even if you're not intending to, because you're trying to be clearer. You're trying to enunciate right. You're not trying to get so much of a slurred casual speech. When I banter with my customers, when I work at retail environments, like, I don't think I have the same manner of speech. I think I'm a little more casual in how I phrase and run words together. Goat, boat, toast, roast. It's not quite as heavily leaned into, but it does have a little bit of that almost British tone to it, but not quite. And I don't know if it's a class-based tonal shift, because I do think that was one of the questions that some people had, because there's an affectation that some of the wealthier communities in East Coast lifestyle tended to get. It's almost what's the there's a term for it that's Atlantic it's an effect that was done you can see it in a lot of old movies, and I don't know if it's as obvious on the English side, but they did cross-pollinate to a certain degree where the enunciation and the pronunciation of certain sounds sort of sound the same in England and in East Coast United States. It's where you get that. If you've ever watched Gilligan's Island, the way the Howells, the rich folks, the millionaires, spoke, there is a tendency for that, like, you see it in politicians of the time, you see it in actors of the time. There's that little bit of like English put onto the tone of speaking. Have a good one. Okay. I generally don't ask about people subscribing because I find that pushy, but I think it's something I may have to work on if I want to advance some of my other channels, especially. But yeah, that transatlantic accent is one that it might be fun for some themed pieces, but I don't think I'm likely to do that much. It would be fun to explore it, but one of the things that I think I'm probably going to end up doing more of is probably like you see some of those videos that are like a top 10 list or an explainer or a whiteboard video. And of course, when I'm doing that, I'm going to have to work on the ums and the uhs. And that is something I'll have to work on. But I think it would be fun to explore to see what kind of opportunities are available. And now, building a setup to do something like this, there are ways you can build an audio setup to play with and not use a lot of materials. Now, I could probably use the mic that I'm using right now for YouTube videos and lower grade voiceover requirements. And that's predominantly going to be in the service of people who are looking for they're looking for somebody else to say it. They don't like the sound of their own voice, or they get nervous when it's their time to speak. Maybe like a Kickstarter video, somebody needs a voiceover. Somebody from Sweden is producing a card game for the United States and their accent is too thick, and they want somebody who can speak with an English accent or an American accent in a way that can convey this idea without weird pronunciations becoming a distracting factor in their Kickstarter. That sort of thing, it's not going to be $100 gig. If I were doing a commercial for a company that's trying to sell you a gyroscopic stabilizer for your camera, then you best believe that's a $400 to $500 gig. But it's also one I'm not likely to get. I'm going to be starting small and doing small work. But that's fine. Like, I'm happy to play on the small end. Now, if we get to a point where I can network with other creators and we have the opportunity to provide voice acting gigs for each other for independent film or something like that, maybe it's something I can look into further as expanding as opportunities come in the future. I don't know. I don't know enough about doing it yet, but I know enough to get comfortable with the idea of potentially failing at it. Now, building a simple rig for less than $100 for doing some recording, I think I can totally do. So, less than $100 for recording, record into Audacity, and edit in Audacity, upload those files, maybe get gigs on Fiverr. I don't know. I mean, I think half the fun would be at a certain point practicing and learning to do other voices. Do a announcer voice with very important details to share with you on this wonderful idea. That kind of thing. Do that kind of project as like a series of like short videos on TikTok or any of those other social media platforms, maybe even Facebook, where you can do those goofy things. And what I thought would be fun to do is if I could do a film noir series, I'd have to practice my film noir voice. And I would love to try to read, I think Twitter tweets would be the right way to do that. Like film noir tweets, where a Twitter post comes up with a date and a time, and you read it off as if it's a journal entry that this noir detective is entering as a narrative device. That could be totally fun to do. So Twitter tweets as film noir journal entries by a private detective. You'd have to hunt and find the right entries to do it. I think that's half the fun of it, is like somebody posted about what they had for breakfast, and the way they phrased it works perfectly for a film noir detective to narrate. That would be hilarious. And I think if I did a bunch of posts like that and just shared them with people, it would be a lot of fun to share with people. But it might also get that notice that can get me more simple entries for doing voiceover. So somebody could see that and say like, hey, I'm working on a card game that's film noir themed. Could you do a film noir narrative entry for my game as part of the Kickstarter or part of the advertising campaign for launching my game? And maybe they'll ask if I could do the writing of some scripting for the narrative on that one. And that's two streams of income, would be the narrative writing and the actual voiceover aspect of it. Am I going to do that as a full-time business? No, probably not. Am I going to get $100 a month from it? Maybe in a year or so. Maybe if I'm really lucky, I will hit a point where I can actually do that, and on top of that, launch visual arts to a degree that can take off and support another part-time income, and maybe a third project doing part-time income. And between 3 part-time incomes, I exceed what I can get from a full-time income from another job, at which point I can move out of doing the other jobs and start doing creative stuff full-time, which is what I want to do. So like things that I've been thinking about doing are, like, I could do tutoring for certain classes for probably not college level for some stuff, but high school level and junior high school level of tutoring for mathematics and sciences and arts and other things like that. I could do online classes through like a Udemy or a Skillshare for creative projects. I could monetize this and my other 2 YouTube channels, and as I'm looking to eventually expand for 2 more channels at a certain point, if I can get my stuff underneath me right, if I can monetize just $50 a month from each of those channels, $50 a month times 5 would be a decent enough part-time income from just doing YouTube channels. And that, on top of doing voiceover stuff for $100 a month or $200 a month, and maybe making $1,000 a month from visual arts, that gets you kind of pretty good for being able to step away from spending 8 hours of your day working for somebody else. And that's, I think from 4 different income streams, potentially being able to pull in $1,600 a month would be a really sweet goal. Now, could I get there in the next year or two, maybe, but like I'm never going to get any closer to it if I don't actually ever start. It may take 5 years to get the voice acting to get to a point where I could potentially make $300 a month off of it. Okay, so if it takes 5 years to get there, it doesn't hurt me to put an hour or two in a day of exploring it and having fun with it. In the meantime, visual arts, voice acting, I could do tutoring. I could do YouTube, Patreon, or ad revenue. I could do merch sales. I could do like the tutoring. I could take a student 3 to 5 times a week, $25 a student for an hour. I mean, you can make decent money with some of these streams, and if I can piece together a collection of things that equals or exceeds what I make monthly now from doing things that I enjoy doing, I think that's the goal. That's the desire I want to hit. Now, how realistic is some of that? I don't know. That's something worth exploring. Like, what does that mean in the long run? Does it mean that I put 4 to 6 hours a day into 4 to 6 different things that I enjoy doing that could earn me part-time income and never goes past that? Okay, that works for me. I'm good with that. If I can say that I get to the end of my life and I've been a podcaster and I've been a YouTuber and I've been a voice actor and a tutor and a artist and an inventor, a class creator for online classes, like, I think that sounds like a good thing. To me, that sounds like a good life. It's a scattered and busy life, but I think that would be worth it. And we've been rambling for an hour. I didn't think I was going to run very long tonight, but I guess I rambled for over an hour. I should probably go now, and I will come back in a week, I think, at this point. We'll see what we talk about next time. I'm not entirely sure what I'm doing yet. And I've got some applications and some jobs, so I got to figure out where I'm going to end up moving to job-wise. I will probably still stay where I'm living for a little while at least. But I'm curious to see how the weeks go. I would also super like for the shingles to go away, because it is not a fun ride. But until then, until next week, take care. Have a good night, and I am sorry I wasn't able to make it on here. Like I said, computer crash. I actually spilled water onto this keyboard, so I'm hoping it works for a while longer. And then the shingles has just really wrecked me. I really don't want to play that game anymore. But for now, take care, and good night. Stay cool, because it's sticky and gross here. I don't know how bad it is where you are. It's a mess.